Hello everyone. Today we are going to read lesson 11 Ancient Education System of India. Section 1. Did you know that India has been the center of learning since ancient times? How did we come to know about this? There are inscriptions on stones and copper, palm leaf records, and our scriptures as evidences of the historic origins of learning in India. Today we follow an education system in which learning takes place through syllabus, curricula, textbooks and assessment practices. Have you ever thought that what these were like in the past? In this feature story, we'll give you glimpses of our ancient education system. Introduction. You must have heard or read that travelers from various regions having different climates and cultures began to visit parts of India from early times. To them, India was a land of wonder. The fame of Indian culture, wealth, religions, philosophies, art, architecture, as well as its educational practices had spread far and wide. The education system of ancient times was regarded as a source for the knowledge, traditions, and practices that guided the encouraged humanity. Salient features of ancient education system. From the time of Rigveda onwards, our ancient education system evolved over a period and focused on the holistic development of the individual by taking care of both the inner and the outer self. The system focused on the moral, physical, spiritual, and intellectual aspects of life. It emphasized on values such as humility, truthfulness, discipline, self-reliance, and respect for all creations. Students were taught to appreciate the balance between human beings and nature. Teaching and learning followed the tenets of Vedas and Upanishads, fulfilling duties towards self, family, and society, thus encompassing all aspects of life. Education system focused both on learning and physical development. In other words, the emphasis was on healthy mind and healthy body. You can see that education in India was a heritage of being pragmatic, achievable, and complementary to life. Sources of education. The ancient system of education was the education of the Vedas, Brahmanas, Upanishads, and Dharmashastras. You must have heard the names of Aryabhat, Panini, Katyayana, and Patanjali. Their writings and the medical treatise of Charak and Sushut were also some of the sources of learning. Distinction was also drawn between Shastras, learned disciplines, and Kavyas, imaginative and creative literature. Sources of learning were drawn from various disciplines such as Itihas, history, Aviksiki, logic, Mimamsa, interpretation, Shilpa Shastra, architecture, Arthashastra, polity, birth, agriculture, trade, commerce, animal husbandry, and Dhanurvidya, archery. Physical education too was an important curricular area and pupil participated in Krida, games, recreational activities, Vyayam Parkara, exercises, Dhanurvidya, archery, or for acquiring martial skills, and Yog Sadhana, training the mind and body, among others. The gurus and their pupils worked consciously together to become proficient in all aspects of learning. In order to assess pupils' learning, Shastrarth learned debates were organized. Pupils at an advanced stage of learning guided younger pupils. There also existed the system of peer learning, like you have group or peer work. Ancient education system in India, a way of life. In ancient India, both formal and informal ways of education system existed. Indigenous education was imparted at home in temples, pathshalas, stalls, chautuspadis and gurukuls. There were people in homes, villages, and temples who guided young children in imbibing pious ways of life. Temples were also the centers of learning and took interest in the promotion of knowledge of our ancient system. Students went to viharas and universities for higher knowledge. Teaching was largely oral, and students remembered and meditated upon what was taught in the class. Gurukuls, also known as ashrams, were the residential places of learning. Many of these were named after the sages. Situated in forest in serene and peaceful surroundings, hundreds of students used to learn together in gurukuls. Women too had access to education during the early Vedic period. Among the prominent women Vedic scholars, we find references to Maitri, Vishwambara, Apala, Gargi, and Lopamudra, to name a few. During that period, the gurus and their shishyas lived together, helping each other in day-to-day life. The main objective was to have complete learning, leading a disciplined life, and realizing one's inner potential. Students lived away from their homes for years together till they achieved their goals. The Gurukul was also the place where the relationship of the Guru and Shishya strengthened with time. While pursuing their education in different disciplines like history, art of debate, law, medicine, etc., the emphasis was not only on the outer dimensions of the discipline but also on enriching inner dimensions of the personality. Section 2. In part 1, you have read about the ancient education system in ashrams, gurukuls, and the way of life in them. This system continued to flourish during the time of the Buddha and the subsequent periods. Many monasteries, viharas, were set up for monks and nuns to meditate, debate, and discuss with the learned for their quest for knowledge during this period. Around these viharas, other educational centers of higher learning developed, which attracted students from China, Korea, Tibet, Burma, Ceylon, Java, Nepal, and other distant countries. Viharas and universities. The Jatak tales, accounts given by Xuanzang and I King, Chinese scholars, as well as other sources, tell us that kings and society took active interest in promoting education. As a result, many famous educational centers came into existence. Among the most notable universities that evolved during this period were situated at Takshashila, Nalanda, Vallabhi, Vikramshila, Odantapuri, and Jagadala. These universities developed in connection with the viharas. Those at Banaras, Navdeep, and Kanchi developed in connection with temples and became centers of community life in the places where they were situated. These institutions catered to the needs of advanced level students. Such students joined the centers of higher learning and developed their knowledge by mutual discussions and debates with renowned scholars. Not only this, there was also occasional summoning by a king to a gathering in which the scholars of the country of various viharas and universities would meet, debate, and exchange their views. In this section, we will give you glimpses of two universities of the ancient period. These universities were considered among the best centers of learning in the world. These have been recently declared heritage sites by the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization UNESCO. Takshashila or Taxila. In ancient times, Takshashila was a noted center of learning, including religious teachings of Buddhism, for several centuries. It continued to attract students from around the world until its destruction in the 5th century CE. It was known for its higher education, and the curriculum comprised the study of ancient scriptures, law, medicine, astronomy, military science, and the 18 silpas and arts. Takshashila became famous as a place of learning due to its teachers' expertise. Among its noted pupils were the legendary Indian grammarian Panini. He was an expert in language and grammar and authored one of the greatest works on grammar called Ashtadhyayi. Jivaka, one of the most renowned physicians in ancient India, and Chanakya, also known as Kautilya, a skilled exponent of statecraft, both studied here. Students came to Takshashila from Kashi, Kosala, Magad, and also from other countries in spite of the long and arduous journey they had to undertake. Takshashila was an ancient Indian city which is now in northwestern Pakistan. It is an important archaeological site and the UNESCO declared it to be a World Heritage Site in 1980. Its fame rested in the university where Chanakya is said to have composed his Arthashastra. Archaeologist Alexander Cunningham discovered its ruins in the mid-19th century. Role of the teacher. Teachers had complete autonomy in all aspects from selection of students to designing their syllabi. When the teacher was satisfied with the performance of the students, the course concluded. He would admit as many students as he liked and taught what his students were keen to learn. Debate and discussions were the primary methods of teaching. Teachers were assisted by their advanced level students. Nalanda University. Nalanda, when Xuanzang visited it, was called Nala and was a center of higher learning in various subjects. The university attracted scholars from the different parts of the country as well as world. The Chinese scholars I King and Xuanzang visited Nalanda in the 7th century CE. They have given vivid accounts of Nalanda. They have noted that as many as 100 discourses happen to a daily basis in a variety of disciplines. Discourses happen on a daily basis. Disciplines through the methods of debate and discussions. Xuanzang himself became a student of Nalanda to study Yoga Shastra. He has mentioned that the counselor of Nalanda, Shilabhadra, was the highest living authority in yoga. The courses of study offered by Nalanda University covered a wide range, almost the entire circle of knowledge then available. Students at Nalanda studied the Vedas and were also trained in fine arts, medicine, mathematics, astronomy, politics, and art of warfare. The ancient Nalanda was a center of learning from the 5th century CE to 12th century CE. Located in present-day Rajgir, Bihar, India, Nalanda was one of the oldest universities of the world, and UNESCO declared the ruins of Nalanda Mahavihara a World Heritage Site. The new Nalanda University is envisaged as a center of inter-civilizational dialogue. Role of community. At that time, knowledge was considered sacred and no fee was charged. Contributions towards education were considered the highest form of donation. All members of the society contributed in some form or the other. Financial support came from rich merchants, wealthy parents, and society. Besides gifts of buildings, the universities received gifts of land. This form of free education was also prevalent in other ancient universities like Vallabhi, Vikramshila, and Jagaddala. At the same time, in the south of India, Agraharas served as centers of learning and teaching. South Indian kingdoms also had other cultural institutions known as Ghatika and Brahmapuri. A Ghatika was a center of learning including religion and was small in size. And Agrahara was a bigger institution, a whole settlement of learned Brahmins with its own powers of government and was maintained by generous donations from the society. Temples, mathas, Jain basadis and Buddhist viharas also existed as other sources of learning during this period. Continuation of Indian education system. The Indian education system continued in the form of ashrams, in temples and as indigenous schools. During the medieval period, maktabas and madrasas became part of the education system. During the pre-colonial period, indigenous education flourished in India. This was an extension of the formal system that had taken roots earlier. This system was mostly religious and spiritual form of education. Tolls in Bengal, Pathshalas in western India, Chatuspadis in Bihar, and similar schools existed in other parts of India. Local resources via donation supported education. References in text and memoirs inform that villagers also supported education in southern India. As we understand, the ancient education system of India focused on the holistic development of the students, both inner and outer self, thus preparing them for life. Education was free and not centralized. Its foundations were laid in the rich cultural traditions of India, thereby helping in the development of the physical, intellectual, spiritual, and artistic aspects of life holistically. Our present day education system has a lot to learn from the ancient education system of India. Therefore, the stress is being laid on connecting learning to the world outside the school. Today, educationists recognize the role and importance of multilingual and multicultural education, thereby connecting the ancient and the traditional knowledge with contemporary learning. This was the reading of our lesson 11, Ancient Education System in India. If you have any doubt or query, you can ask me in the comment section below, and you can find the links of other lessons in the description box below. Thank you everyone.